On June 7, 2025, Simone Biles, the legendary American gymnast, whose name is synonymous with excellence in athletics, found herself at the center of a heated discussion on the social media platform X. The controversy arose from comments she reportedly made in response to Riley Gaines, a former collegiate swimmer and prominent advocate for restricting transgender athletes' participation in women's sports categories. These remarks have ignited a broader conversation about inclusion, fairness, and the complex dynamics of transgender participation in competitive sports, a topic that continues to generate intense debate across social, political, and athletic spheres. According to posts circulating on X, Biles addressed Gaines directly, allegedly calling her a loser and bully in the context of the ongoing debate about transgender athletes competing in women's sports. The post suggests that Biles advocated for greater inclusion of transgender athletes, proposing that Gaines either support their participation in existing categories or endorse the creation of a separate category for transgender competitors to ensure a safe and equitable environment for all. These statements, while widely discussed on X, have not been corroborated by official sources such as interviews, press releases, or verified statements from Biles or her representatives. The lack of confirmation underscores the need for caution when interpreting social media-driven narratives, as the platform often amplifies unverified or emotionally charged content. The reaction to Biles' reported comments has been sharply divided. Some users on X expressed disappointment, arguing that her remarks fail to address the concerns of cisgender female athletes, particularly younger competitors, who may feel that the inclusion of transgender women in their categories could impact competitive fairness. Critics suggested that Biles, as a trailblazer in women's sports, has a responsibility to consider the broader implications of her stance, with some going so far as to claim that her comments undermine her legacy as a champion for female athletes. Others, however, have defended Biles, pointing to her personal history as a survivor of bullying and abuse, including her well-documented experiences in the Larry Nassar scandal. These experiences, they argue, may inform her perspective on fostering inclusive and supportive environments in sports, potentially explaining the emotional intensity behind her reported statements. The debate over transgender participation in sports is a multifaceted issue that has been at the forefront of global athletic discussions for years. At its core, it involves balancing the principles of inclusion and fairness. Advocates for restricting transgender participation argue that biological differences, such as muscle mass, bone density, or testosterone levels, could provide an unfair advantage in women's categories, potentially affecting outcomes for cisgender female athletes. These concerns are often rooted in scientific studies and anecdotal evidence from competitions, though the data remains contested and varies by sport. Conversely, proponents of inclusion emphasize the importance of allowing transgender athletes to compete in accordance with their gender identity, provided they meet established medical or regulatory criteria, such as hormone therapy requirements set by governing bodies like the International Olympic Committee, IOC, or World Athletics. These criteria aim to level the playing field while respecting athletes' identities. The suggestion of a separate transgender category, reportedly mentioned by Biles in the X post, has been proposed as a potential compromise in this debate. Supporters of this idea argue that it could provide a dedicated space for transgender athletes to compete without raising concerns about fairness in existing categories. However, the concept is not without controversy. Critics argue that creating a separate category could marginalize transgender athletes, reinforcing the notion that they do not fully belong in either men's or women's divisions. Others point out logistical challenges, such as the relatively small number of openly transgender athletes in many sports, which could make such categories impractical or unsustainable. The debate over separate categories reflects the broader challenge of finding solutions that honor both inclusion and competitive equity, a task that sports governing bodies have struggled to address consistently. Simone Biles' involvement in this conversation carries significant weight due to her status as one of the most accomplished athletes in history. With 11 Olympic medals, including 7 golds and 30 World Championship medals, Biles has redefined the sport of gymnastics through her unparalleled skill, innovative routines, and mental fortitude. Beyond her athletic achievements, she's emerged as a powerful advocate for change within the sports world. Her decision to withdraw from several events at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics to prioritize her mental health sparked a global conversation about the pressures faced by elite athletes, challenging stigmas and reshaping expectations. Similarly, her role as a survivor of the Larry Nassar abuse scandal, in which she was one of hundreds of gymnasts abused by the former USA gymnastics team doctor, has made her a vocal critic of systemic failures in sports organizations. Biles has consistently called for accountability, better protections for athletes, and safer environments, cementing her legacy not only as a competitor but also as a leader in athlete advocacy. This history of advocacy provides important context for understanding Biles' reported comments on X. Her experiences with bullying, both in her personal life and as a public figure, may shape her sensitivity to issues of exclusion and harassment. As a Black woman in a predominantly white sport, Biles has also faced racism and scrutiny throughout her career, from criticism of her appearance to questioning of her dominance. These challenges may inform her perspective on creating inclusive spaces, particularly for marginalized groups within athletics. If her reported comments about transgender inclusion are accurate, they could reflect a continuation of her commitment to fostering environments where all athletes feel valued and supported, though the lack of an official statement makes it difficult to confirm her intent. The role of social media, particularly X, in amplifying this controversy cannot be overstated. Platforms like X serve as real-time barometers of public sentiment, allowing users to share opinions, react to events, and engage in debates with unprecedented speed. However, this immediacy also comes with drawbacks. The posts about Biles' comments, while widely circulated, lack verification from primary sources, raising questions about their accuracy and context. Social media often distorts narratives as users selectively share information that aligns with their views or amplifies emotional reactions. In this case, the absence of a clear statement from Biles or her team means that much of the discussion is speculative, driven by screenshots and interpretations rather than confirmed facts. This dynamic highlights the challenges of navigating complex issues in an era where social media can shape perceptions faster than traditional reporting. The polarized reactions on X reflect the broader societal divide on transgender inclusion in sports. Supporters of Biles' reported stance have praised her for advocating inclusivity, arguing that her comments align with her history of standing up for marginalized athletes. They view her response to gains as a defense of fairness and respect, particularly in light of her own experiences with adversity. Critics, however, argue that her remarks dismiss legitimate concerns about competitive equity, particularly for female athletes who may feel disadvantaged in certain scenarios. Some have expressed frustration that Biles, as a role model, did not take a more nuanced approach to the issue, while others have gone further, accusing her of betraying the interests of women's sports. These contrasting views underscore the difficulty of addressing such a complex issue in a public forum, where nuance is often lost in favor of polarized rhetoric. The controversy also raises broader questions about the role of athletes in social and political debates. As public figures, athletes like Biles wield significant influence, and their voices can shape conversations on issues ranging from gender equality to racial justice. However, this influence comes with challenges. Athletes who speak out on controversial topics risk alienating portions of their audience, facing backlash, or having their words taken out of context. Biles' reported comments, whether fully accurate or not, illustrate the delicate balance athletes must navigate when engaging with divisive issues. Her prominence amplifies both the reach and the scrutiny of her statements, making her a lightning rod for praise and criticism alike. Looking beyond the immediate controversy, it's worth considering the broader context of transgender inclusion in sports. The issue has been addressed by various sports organizations, each with its own policies and criteria. For example, the IOC's 2021 Framework on Fairness, Inclusion, and Non-Discrimination allows individual sports federations to set their own eligibility rules, emphasizing evidence-based approaches to balance inclusion with competitive fairness. World Athletics, meanwhile, has implemented stricter regulations, requiring transgender women to maintain testosterone levels below a certain threshold for an extended period to compete in women's events. These policies reflect the ongoing effort to find equitable solutions, but they also highlight the lack of a universal standard, which contributes to ongoing debates and inconsistencies across sports. The suggestion of a separate transgender category, as reportedly referenced by Biles, has been debated extensively. Proponents argue that it could address concerns about fairness while providing transgender athletes with opportunities to compete. For example, sports like weightlifting and combat sports, where physical differences can have significant impacts, might benefit from such an approach. However, critics argue that separate categories could stigmatize transgender athletes, implying that they do not belong in existing divisions. Additionally, the feasibility of implementing such categories depends on the number of transgender athletes in a given sport, as well as the resources available to organize and promote new competitive divisions. These complexities make it clear that no single solution will satisfy all stakeholders, and ongoing dialogue is essential to finding a path forward. For Biles, this controversy is unlikely to overshadow her extraordinary legacy. At 28 years old, she remains a dominant force in gymnastics with a career that has redefined what is possible in the sport. Her signature moves, such as the Yurchenko double pike, have pushed the boundaries of technical difficulty, while her resilience in the face of personal and professional challenges has inspired millions. Her advocacy for mental health, in particular, has had a lasting impact, encouraging athletes across disciplines to prioritize their well-being and speak openly about their struggles. Whether or not she intended to wade into the transgender inclusion debate, her reported comments reflect her willingness to engage with difficult topics, even at the risk of controversy. As of June 7, 2025, there have been no reports of Biles competing or making public appearances related to gymnastics on this date, and the focus remains on her social media activity. The absence of an official statement from Biles or her representatives leaves many questions unanswered, including the full context of her comments and her broader views on the issue. Without verification, it's possible that the posts on X misrepresent or exaggerate her stance, a common occurrence in the fast-paced world of social media. Moving forward, it will be important to monitor whether Biles clarifies her position through official channels such as a press conference, interview, or statement on her verified accounts. The role of social media in shaping this narrative cannot be understated. Platforms like X provide a space for real-time discussion, allowing fans, critics, and observers to share their perspectives instantly. However, this immediacy also amplifies misinformation and polarization, as users often react to partial or unverified information. In this case, the lack of a primary source for Biles' comments means that the conversation is largely speculative, driven by screenshots and secondhand accounts. This dynamic serves as a reminder of the importance of critical thinking when consuming social media content, particularly on issues as sensitive as transgender inclusion. The controversy surrounding Biles also highlights the broader challenges facing the sports world as it grapples with questions of identity, fairness, and inclusion. Athletes, governing bodies, and fans alike are navigating uncharted territory, and the path forward will require open dialogue, empathy, and a commitment to evidence-based solutions. For transgender athletes, the stakes are deeply personal, as they seek to compete authentically in a system that has historically been structured around binary gender categories. For cisgender athletes, concerns about fairness and opportunity are equally valid, particularly in sports where physical differences can influence outcomes. Finding a balance that respects all athletes' rights and experiences is a complex task, but one that is essential for the future of competitive sports. In the meantime, Simone Biles remains a towering figure in athletics, admired not only for her unparalleled achievements, but also for her courage in speaking out on issues that matter to her. Whether her reported comments on X reflect her full perspective or were taken out of context, they have sparked an important conversation about the values that define sports. As the debate continues, it's crucial to approach the topic with respect, recognizing the humanity of all athletes involved and the complexity of the issues at hand. Biles' legacy, built on resilience, innovation, and advocacy, will undoubtedly endure. But this moment serves as a reminder of the challenges of navigating public discourse in an era of instant communication and polarized opinions.